Yo, guys, what is going on? Want to welcome you to Pistons Talk Podcast, hosted by me, Anthony. I am a little bit late. Do apologize for that. Was just getting some stuff to drink because we're going to be on for at least an hour. Wanted to talk to you guys about your Detroit Pistons, but man, before I even get into that, how about them Lions, man? How about the Detroit Lions beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They're going to be heading to the NFC Championship against the 49ers. So shout out to the Lions, man. Like, I just want to talk about them for a quick 60 seconds because I know there have been some football people telling me don't talk football, stay in your own lane. But got to give a shout out to the Lions, shout out to the city of Detroit. We need at least one good team going into a deep playoff run, but it was really cool to see them win today. But did want to get into the podcast with you guys. There's a couple topics, some trade rumors. There's actually a trade last week that we're going to talk about in the top of the podcast. So wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the Marvin Bagley trade. I know I did cover it a little bit, I believe, this past week. I'm not going to go in depth as I did in the video that I did upload this week, but just kind of talk about it. I think this was a trade for me. When I looked at it, I was kind of surprised by it. I was surprised that they traded Marvin Bagley. And the reason why I was surprised by it was he wasn't a guy that I really thought that the Pistons were going to move on. Now, obviously, what happened with him this season where he was getting DNPs and we started to see James Wiseman play more games. Like, I never understood that. And, we get quotes from Monty saying that, hey, we want to give James Wiseman a fresh look. I mean, that's all good and well if you want to do that. But, I mean, do it in garbage time, in my personal opinion. Like, if the goal was to try to trade Marvin Bagley, sure. I mean, you could still showcase him. You could still play him. So I was kind of confused that they didn't move on from Marvin Bagley. Isaiah Livers, on the other hand, you guys, like, okay. Like, he's been so bad this season. He was so bad this season for the Detroit Pistons. So I was kind of like, okay, like, he's on a really cheap deal. I don't even think he's making $3 million this year. He's supposed to be a 3D wing, but he doesn't play any defense and he doesn't hit threes. So what is he? Like, I don't know. I was expecting some good things out of him this season, but you look at his numbers, they're just like across the board, they're just down. Like, I was just like, why are we playing Isaiah Livers over Kevin Knox? I didn't understand it. And like, Kevin Knox has been good this season for the Pistons. Like, he's been one of their better 3-and-D wings off the bench for them. I never understood why Livers was playing, but hey, it's kind of my thought process on it. I do like Mike Muscala. I think he brings something that this team doesn't have. I love his veteran leadership. The spacing, so far through the first two games that I've seen from him, I think he's a guy that they could possibly bring back next season. He's always been a really good, under the radar type of veteran. He can play either power forward or center, which I like. I like the ability if you want to play him at center, you can have a stretch five out there with the second unit. So he's a guy that I've been telling you guys for months. Like, you can go after these mid-tier guys that can contribute. And to me, I think Mike Muscala is one of those guys. Now, for Danilo Gallinari, you guys, this is a guy that, yes, he's 35 years old. Yes, the mobility isn't there like it used to be when he was with the Denver Nuggets, but he's a legitimate stretch four. He's the type of stretch four I think the Detroit Pistons need. Would have loved Danilo Gallinari like 5 years ago, if I'm being 100% honest. But he is 35. He's another veteran. Both Muscala and Gallinari are in expiring contracts, but I think that's the type of archetype you need at the power forward position. A guy like Danilo Gallinari who can hit a three-point shot from, 30, 35 feet away. Pretty good free throw shooter. Grab a rebound if you need it. And he's at that stage of his career where if you want to play him at backup five and you need more shooting, you can. That's what Washington did a lot last season, or I should say this season. They were playing Gallinari and Muscala both at backup fives in certain situations because they can hit 3-point shots and they can stay with some backup centers. So, overall, I gave the trade like a C because I didn't like giving up 2 second-round picks, future second-round picks, I should say. But all in all, I think you saw yesterday what happens when this team has some proper spacing on the floor. I mean, you competed with the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, it was still a loss, but you put up 135 points. Um, and that's saying something. Milwaukee is a contender. Milwaukee is going to go far this season. So I can kind of see what this front office is looking for. They're looking for more spacing, and you get two guys that are on expiring deals, and you can kind of see what this team potentially looks like with some legitimate floor spacers. And it's two more vets in the room with Bojan and Alec Burks and Monte Morris. So I think all in all, it's a pretty good trade. I was just kind of upset because there was no clarity with Marvin Bagley. I would have liked more than we want to give James Wiseman some reps. Nothing against James Wiseman, really good dude, but it's like, give us some clarity as fans because like the whole we want to give Wiseman more touches thing. We want to give Wiseman a better look. I just didn't agree with it, and you guys know my stance on that. But like overall, like I think you're starting to see what this team could look like with some actual floor spacers. But I do want to go into some comments about this topic like we did last week. That's something that I want to get you guys more involved, okay, with this podcast. If there's, something that you agree with me, great. If there's something that you think I missed, great. But I do want to go to a couple comments about this trade that did happen this past week. Let's see what we got. Muscala is good. Yeah, I like Muscala. I wouldn't be opposed if you want to bring him back for maybe a hometown discount, maybe something cheap. Just don't overpay for him. But I think he's a good vet if you do want to bring him back. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about Lions, you guys. Like I said, some of the Lions guys got mad that I was talking Lions, kind of telling me to stay in my own lane. But yeah, I'm happy for the Lions. I really am. Got a comment from Carlton Evans on Facebook. He's all right. Need to be real cheap. Yeah, like I'm not going to give him 10 million, Carlton. But like if you can get him in like the 3, like a vet's minimum, maybe like $5 million range as a backup, I think there's value there with Muscala. Like Gallinari, I have to watch him a little bit more, and I don't know if he wants to play too much longer. I think he said this is his 16th year in the league, which this kind of makes me feel old because I remember watching Gallinari when I was in high school, and I was just like, man, like he's just got such a nice game. And I always used to pick him up in fantasy. He used to get me hella 3-pointers. I'm not even gonna lie. Gerard said, I like the trade. Brings more shooting for us. 100%, Gerard. I did touch on that at the top of the podcast. I thought, you do need floor spacers, and that's something that I think a lot, not only you, but a lot of people nationally saying, like, get Cade Cunningham and the Detroit Pistons some more floor spacers to open up this offense more. And I think you saw that yesterday against the Bucks. For sure. Dario Saric would be a better replacement. Yeah, I mean, if you can get Dario Saric here, Maurice, sure. I just don't really know what his market is. I know he's been in the league for a few seasons. Dario Saric is another, under the radar type guy where he can bang down low in the post and he can spread the floor a little bit. I do like Dario Saric's game. I think we talked about that last week too, Maurice. So appreciate you watching and appreciate you just dropping comments during this podcast. Bagley's done put up 2 back-to-back double-doubles for the Wizards. Yeah, I saw that. I think his first game he dropped like 20 points. And then he had a double-double against Wembanyama. I mean, Bagley's a good player, right? I'm not going to say like he's a superstar or star player, but he's serviceable. If you need him for a good 20 minutes, he's golden. Like, he can get you 14 and 7 a night easily. I just didn't like the clarity of how it was handled. Like saying that we just want to get a better look at a guy that has struggled at times this season. I didn't agree with it, honestly. I just didn't. Carlton, how do you feel about the young talent? My first time watching your pod. Carlton, actually going to save this question for our Q&A segment because this is a great question. Um, we'll answer maybe like one more question, and then we're going to go to the next segment of this podcast. Jack Kingsley, that's what happens when Pistons players leave. They become all-stars. Yeah. Spencer Dinwiddie, he's probably going to get traded. Chris Middleton, I get it, man. I get it. No issues trading Bagley. We need to focus on who's going to be our core 8 and build on that. He wasn't a part of the future anyways. I don't really think like a core member, but I think where my only problem with it was you had to pay 2 second-round picks to essentially get off his deal, right? And I think at the end of the day, if you look at this move, it was a cap flexibility move. The Pistons want to have more cap space, and I have no idea what they're going to do. I don't know if they're going to spend this cap space over the next couple of weeks, because that's kind of been their move. It's been Troy Weaver's move, is to clear up some cap space, trade for guys that maybe you don't want to, compete with in free agency, or trade for guys that are under contract for maybe another year or two, and use the cap space that way. I'd be very surprised if they made a big splash this summer. I just haven't seen it. Like, you'd have to go back to like his first offseason with Jeremy Grant, where it was a sign and trade. And like outside of that, you've signed like Mason Plumlee, Kelly Olynyk. You really haven't done anything in free agency to make me believe that you're actually going to do something. But that's just kind of been my stance on it with the whole, you got 60 to 50 million in cap space, depending on what you do with the vets. Like, I think they're going to spend a majority of the cap space in the next couple of weeks with the trading deadline. I think the trade deadline ends February 8th, but I think that's what they're going to do. I really do. We're going to go to the next topic, you guys. So we're going to be talking about something that I believe a lot of you guys, I don't know if you saw it in the news, but we don't have to deal with Bally Sports Detroit. Amazon is acquiring a minority stake in the Diamond Sports Group. Now, why does this matter? Okay. The reason why this matters is because the Diamond Sports Group owns all the feeds with not only Bally Sports Detroit, but Bally Sports as a whole. Now, I'm going to put a tweet on the screen. Now, this did happen this week, that they're reporting that Amazon, like I said earlier, is acquiring a minority stake in the Diamond Sports Group. The regional sports network filed bankruptcy last year, putting local media rights for 37 teams across the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the National Hockey League in jeopardy. Now customers can watch games on Amazon Prime. This is huge because, like you guys, I tried the whole Bally experience. I tried to buy Bally Sports Plus for $20 a month. It didn't work. I had to log in every damn time I wanted to use the app, which was it was annoying, just to say the least. I thought it was going to come down to ESPN Plus. There was some talks about NBC and Amazon. Amazon wants to be big players in the NBA. They want to get their name out there. They already do it with the NFL. Thursday Night Football, Amazon does a game of the week. Now you're going to see Amazon with these streams now, and you're going to be able to watch it on Prime Video, which, if it's anything like what they do with the NFL, I think the production is going to be a hell of a lot better. I think it's going to be more accessible to, fans to not only watch it in the state of Michigan, but outside the state of Michigan. If you guys have an Amazon Prime account or you watch Prime Video, their app never lags. It never freezes. It's just a great experience all in all. And to even be a Prime member, it's $15 a month, which is, it's affordable at least. And like if you never had a Prime account before, you can get a 30-day free trial. Now, I don't really know if how do I say this? I don't know when this is going to go into effect, as I'm pretty sure Bally has the rights for the Pistons games for the remainder of the season, along with the Red Wings games as well. I believe Bally's going to be doing the Tigers games all the season too. But I think it's good for Pistons fans. Yeah, $14 a month. I'm going to spend the $14 a month because I have an Amazon account. I watch Prime Video. The experience is good. And I think that's been my whole issue with the Bally Sports era is ever since Fox sold, it's just been a shit show. It's been really bad. It really has, man. Like, um, I personally unsubscribe from Bally Sports, right? And I actually watch games illegally. And I'm not gonna say the site that I do watch the games on, but you guys know there's plenty of illegal streaming sites out there where you can watch not only Pistons games, but Lions games, everything, right? And I'd much rather pay for a service that isn't sketchy and I don't get like random ads for health insurance from like a Russian doctor. Like I'd rather like I'll gladly pay the $14 a month with Amazon if it's gonna be the type of production that we see with Amazon Prime Video with the NFL. Because I think they do a hell of a job production wise. The instant replays are, nice and crisp. The whole Bally experience has just been really bad. It really has. But did want to update you guys on that. We are going to take a short break, but we will be back in a couple of seconds. Okay, guys, we are back. That was just for ad breaks on the audio side if you are listening to it. Um, can't talk for an hour straight when you do these podcasts. Sometimes you do have to take a break, but I did want to talk to you guys about Jaden Ivey. And the reason why I wanted to talk about Jaden Ivey with you guys is last week we talked about this organizational meeting, right? And I think a lot of you, like me, when you heard this from Monty Williams, right? Like, well, they had to sit me down and say, "Hey, you need to play Jaden Ivey more. Jaden Ivey needs the ball in his hands more." And when I saw that tweet, I believe it was James Edwards that had tweeted that out, like an organizational meeting. I was like, "You're one of the highest paid coaches in the NBA, and your bosses, your GM, whatever, the people in the front office that work for the Detroit Pistons have to tell you to play one of your younger guys, one of a prospect that you drafted 5th overall 2 years ago. Hey, you should play him with the ball in his hands." And you know what? Jaden Ivey's been balling, man. I know the Pistons have only won 4 games this year. But Jaden Ivey with the ball in his hands, man, he has been great. I looked up the numbers because I was like, you know what? It's been a 4-game sample size with Jaden Ivey. Let's go look at the numbers. Let's go look what Jaden Ivey is doing. And this is from StatMuse. So Jaden Ivey, these last 4 games since they told Monty to put the ball in his hands, 23 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6.5 assists, shooting 48% from the field and 37.5% from the 3-point line. What do you know? Jaden Ivey's pretty good when he's not standing in the damn corner. What do you know? What do you know? I don't get it, man. I don't get how he has been treated this season. I know a lot of you guys have said, hey, like, why is Monty treating Jaden like that? Like, what did Ivey do? Now, I'm not defending Ivey to the extent where, like, defensively, I think he let guys just get right past him. And defensively, he was pretty bad. But he has gotten better each and every game. He's just been one of those players where I have so much stock in Jaden Ivey, and I would not trade him because I know we were talking about last week. Would you trade Jaden Ivey for DeJounte Murray? I said no, and I still strongly believe that I would not trade him. My thing with Jaden Ivey is you got to develop this kid. And the reason why you have to develop this kid is he is one of the most hard working players I have ever watched in my Pistons fandom over the last 10 years. This kid, I remember going to a game. He was the first one out there. Game didn't tip off for an hour and a half, and he's out there doing drills, doing shooting drills, dribbling drills, defensive drills. Like this kid puts in so much work to get better each and every day. And we had a coaching staff that just didn't play him because, defensively, he wasn't always locked in, which I think that message is it's weird. Like, if you want to play Killian Hayes because you think he's a better defender, like, just come out and say it. Like, Monty hasn't. He's just saying, like, I play Killian because he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Jaden does. Like, okay. Like, he's going to make mistakes if you rip him out every time he makes a mistake. I'm honestly, I'm happy. I know I've been rambling with this topic. I think that Ivy has a long way to go. I don't think he's a finished product by any means. I think defensively, there is room to grow. And I think a lot of you guys would agree with me on that. But offensively, he's special. He can get to the basket at will. Coming out of college, and knock on him was he wasn't a good 3-point shooter. Over his last 4 games, he's shooting 37.5%. There's so much to like with this kid, and that's why I never understood the treatment from Monty Williams. Now, obviously, Killian is a good passer, good defender, but I think Ivy in the lineup, you see the type of offensive production that he can bring, and it's going to be really interesting to see when Cade Cunningham comes back next week. What happens with that? Because Cade is a guard to me that needs the ball in his hands. So is Ivy. I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work with those two being guards that really like the ball in their hands. But I think you have to try it out because if one of them needs the ball in their hands and you find out that it doesn't work, at least you tried. You have to find out if these two can coexist in the backcourt. Or maybe you make a lineup change. Maybe you have Ivy as the point and you put Cade at small forward. Or maybe you play Ivy off ball and Cade has the point guard in his hands and you have Ivy be more of a motion shooter. Like these two are so versatile together. I'm really interested to see if Monty and this coaching staff will actually let these two coexist together, see if this backcourt can actually be a thing with the Pistons. Because so far, I know it's very early in the season, even though the season is halfway over. We haven't really seen, a Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey backcourt coexist. I just don't know yet. I think it's early so far, but for me, I want to see if these two can coexist, and I think a lot of you guys want to see that too. At least let's see if they can actually play together because we haven't seen that so far. But I do want to go do some comments after this topic with you guys. Like I said, I'm just happy that the front office basically told them, like, hey, play Ivy with the ball in his hands. Like, what are you doing? Like, are we serious right now? Like, what are we doing? Uh yeah, I'm not gonna read that. You guys are wild. Ryan, most of all is confident is way up. Yeah, 100%, man. Like that's the thing too. Like when young players come into the league, they may be like uber confident, like an Anthony Edwards, for example. But like if you don't play them, there's a good chance that confidence could diminish if you rip them out for every little mistake. And I think that's been my biggest thing is like these kids come out of college and they've won at a high level or they're not really used to losing the way that our Detroit Pistons have been losing. Like the confidence can be like really like low. It can. I'm happy to see that he's still that guy. Maurice Shaw. That's about what he did the last 2 months from last year. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it though, a second year guard in the NBA, averaging 23, 6, and 6. Those are pretty good numbers. I know the Pistons aren't winning a lot, and it's not translating to wins, but those are pretty damn good numbers. I don't know if he can keep it up, especially with Cade coming back, but I've always believed in the talent with Jaden Ivey. It's never been a talent issue. It's always kind of been like, does he fit next to Cade? And I don't know yet. And I think a lot of fans, they could have assumptions. I don't think it'll fit. I don't think it'll work. That's fine. Who's to say he can't be your sixth man? Who's to say that he can't be that first guard off the bench to lead the second unit? Like, you have to at least try to see if those two can coexist together. I have a feeling they can, but we have to actually see it with their own eyes. And we need more of like a, 30 game sample size. Um, these are two guards that are electric with the ball in their hands, two guards that can both play off ball and create. So I have a feeling that it'll work just because they're so versatile. But that's just kind of like been my opinion on it. Now I know some of you may disagree with it, and that's completely okay. I welcome debates. I welcome, different opinions. Um, this comes from Hugh watching on Facebook. The coach does not recognize talent. Sorry, but Casey won 20 without Cade. Monty has 4 with Cade. Ivy is the future. Monty is not. Man, that's a bar, man. That is a bar, Hugh. Shout out to you, man. When I was talking to James Edwards, and we were kind of talking about Monty Williams, he said something pretty interesting. He said Casey was more of an offensive minded coach. And obviously they won 17 games last year. Now it's not like good, right? Um, but offensively, I don't really have the numbers in front of me. But when he said that, it kind of made sense because Monty, since he's been in Detroit, he's been preaching defense a lot, right? That's like our best defensive lineup was with Killian Hayes out there in the beginning of the season. Excuse me. And I think he's really focused on the defensive end of the floor. And I think that's what not only Troy Weaver, but the front office wants too. Man, got hiccups really bad. Apologize, you guys. But to your point, Hugh, Casey won more because I think he was more focused on the offensive end. Like he wasn't as focused on the defensive end. But I think the way Troy Weaver talks about defense, the way this front office has talked about defense since they've been here, I think they need to adapt with the times. And I know every great Detroit Pistons team that we've had, whether that was the Bad Boys or the Going to Work Pistons, you can't play defense like that anymore. This is an offensive driven league. You have teams shooting 33 pointers a game. If the Pistons want to get with the times, you need to find players, or you need to find, because I don't think they're going to fire the coach after giving him that huge bag, Hugh. I really don't. But you need to find players that can score the basketball at the end of the day. You need to find players that are good 3-point shooters. You need to go get bucket getters. You need isolation players. Like at the end of the day, in this modern NBA, you need to find players to score the basketball. Like you can all say, oh, we want to restore the Pistons. We want to do all that. Great. But you need to adapt with the times. This isn't the Golden Work Pistons when, they were locking teams down to, like 80, 70 points. Like you can't win like that in the NBA anymore. You can't play defense like that in the NBA anymore. You need to find guys that can score the basketball. If they can play a little bit of defense, that's great. But at the end of the day, whoever wins the game is the team that scored more points. And like I said, I think the way this organization is really preach defense. I just don't know if you can find guys that are going to be lockdown defenders like that. I just don't, and get away with it. Like we see a Sar Thompson, hell of a defender. Love the kid, but like he's getting in foul trouble sometimes because like you can't play defense like that anymore. It's 2024. It's not 2004. Like at the end of the day, this is an offensive driven league, and I don't think it's going to change. Oh, good question from Jack. Do you think Casey or Monty is a better coach for the Pistons? You know, I was thinking about this, and this might be kind of off base. I don't want to come off disrespectful by any means. I think Monty was never the right coach for this team. I thought Casey at times could be a good coach for this team. He had a track record of somewhat developing talent in Toronto. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. We're going to be talking about a little bit later in the podcast. But I thought Casey did a pretty good job. And the players, the younger players, really like Coach Casey. He grew with the kids too. You have to remember. Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart, like they really loved Coach Casey. And when he was fired, you can go back and watch. Like a lot of those players really upset by it. Do the Pistons have more than 4 wins under Casey? I don't know. I think Monty is a good coach, but I just don't think the players right now are fully bought into his system. And I think that's why they're trading for more veteran players. They're trying to bring in more vets to, have the younger players not only develop under the vets, but also be an extension of the coach to remind these kids like, hey, like you need to buy into coach's message. But I personally don't see the same type of energy under Monty Williams that I did with Dwayne Casey last year. And they were without Cade Cunningham for a majority of the season. But that's just kind of been my take on it, Jack. It's because we got the wrong coach. Yeah, like I don't really think that Monty is a bad coach. I said last week to you guys, I think Monty Williams is a good veterans coach, right? I think if you were to put him on the Milwaukee Bucks, good fit, right? You put him on the Philadelphia 76ers, great fit. Put him on your 4 rebuilding Detroit Pistons. I don't know. I don't really know if he's going to get fired or he's trying to get fired because it seems at times it looks like he's trying to rotation wise. But I don't know, man. I think that he's a good coach. And I know we've kind of got off topic. I do want to get back to some comments about the Jaden Ivey thing. Got a comment from Maurice. Stagger the minutes more. Yeah, that's something they could do with Jaden Ivey and Cade. I still think it's gonna work though. My gut tells me that they'll find a way to make it work. If the Pistons use Jaden Ivey like he was used at Purdue, playing off ball more, that would be perfect. That'd be perfect. Red Baron, the more we see Ivy succeed, the angrier I get with Monty. Yeah, that's to be expected, man. Like he was a 5th overall draft pick 2 years ago. Like he was like the best available player you could get. He's one of the best players in college basketball. Like I don't understand it, man. Like I don't like the subtle shots either. Like when Ivy had a good game, Monty didn't say he had a good game. He focused on like 2 mistakes he made throughout the game. I was like, what? Really? You can't pat him on the back for having a good game. Some of the stuff like that, when I see it, it's just like it feels like he's got a personal problem with Jaden Ivey. I don't understand it. I just don't. I want to get to some more comments, and then we'll probably head over to the next topic. It's from Alton Hart, watching on Facebook. If the Pistons were smart, we would trade Cade. His value is high 1, and he doesn't fit with Ivy. He gets injured a lot. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned this, Alton, because I've been in debates with Pistons fans about this. Not only right now, but probably dating back to the draft process when the Pistons fell to 5 before they did draft Ivy. There was a lot of debate. Shaden Sharp, Benedict Mathurin. A lot of people weren't really sure how the fit would work. Now, the Pistons is smart. They would trade Cade. I don't think they want to trade Cade. I think that's a guy that they want to build around. That's the guy that they want to build the franchise around is Cade Cunningham, and he's a very talented player. And I think they should build the team around Cade. I'm not opposed to trading Cade, but I just don't think the Pistons will do it. And if I were them, I probably wouldn't either. He doesn't fit with Ivy. We just don't know that yet. We don't really have a sample size where you say Cade and Ivy don't fit together. We just don't. Like, you need at least a good 30 to 50 games to see if they can build some chemistry together, to see if they can make it work. If you were to pull the trigger right now and trade one of the two, I think more people would be apt to keeping Cade Cunningham over Jaden Ivey. And me personally, I'd rather keep the two, see if it could work. But I do appreciate you commenting that on Facebook, watching live right now. But like I said, it's just we don't know yet. And I think those are conversations that I see all the time. I really do. But I don't know. Go to one more comment, then we can go. Anthony is relishing the lone wolf. Good stuff. Appreciate it, Freddie. Appreciate it. I really do. Appreciate you guys watching this too. I know, it's a Sunday, 8:00 at night, and you got 94 of you guys in here. So I appreciate all you guys watching right now. I really do. Got one comment from Game Nuts. Said the only issue I have with Cade is giving him the max contract this summer because of the way the team is made. You can't properly evaluate him. I just fear it might not work out by next season. That is a very fair comment. If you want to give Cade, because he is extension eligible for you guys that don't know, Cade could sign the rookie max extension, which I think the Pistons would probably give him the max. Like what Tyrese Halliburton got, if you guys want to look that up, I think it was like close to $200 million or a little bit more. Cade is eligible to sign that. And to Game Nuts' point, you can't really evaluate him because the team construction is all over the place. It doesn't make sense. It contradicts itself. I think over the next couple of weeks and this summer, you're going to see a lot of change from the roster standpoint because this team can't go into next season still selling you guys hope of a rebuild and restore. It just can't happen. And I don't even know if they're going to keep the same front office. That might change too. I think there's going to be a lot of change. I would be apt to give Cade the max extension. I would, because I don't want to lose him. Not to say that he would turn down a max extension. He'd be the first player ever to do that, by the way. But for me, I would definitely give him the max extension. I think evaluation, it's a fair comment, but we have to just wait and see. Wait and see what this front office does. Wait and see what Tom Gores does. Maybe he makes changes in the front office. Like we just don't know yet. I really think the next couple of weeks, you guys, it's going to be really interesting to see what the Pistons do in the trade market. Pistons fans want to trade good players and keep bad ones. I don't understand this fan base. Yeah, I'm guilty of that, Dwayne. I really am. I get attached to some players. I think you're right. We do want the good players, but we don't want we want to keep the bad ones. I don't know if this is a direct comment towards Marvin Bagley. I've always said he's a good bench piece, but I don't know. You don't give a max because he hasn't made any all-star teams or anything. Okay, I want to talk about this. I think you're right, but here's my fear, Dwayne. I think the Pistons, being the Pistons, right? They'll give him that max, regardless of what his status is, regardless of if he's made any type of all NBA teams, all-star teams, because they don't want to lose him. Reminds me, and I know I'm going back. It reminds me when the Pistons signed Andre Drummond, right? When Andre Drummond got that 5-year max, it was like 5 years, 120, 130 mil, right? They probably could have signed him for less because I don't really think there was a lot of competition to max out Andre Drummond. Not to say he's a bad player, but you probably could have got him a little bit cheaper than what they paid. Um, for the Pistons, I think they're just going to give him a blank check. Like they'll give him that rookie max contract extension. They'll give him $200 million, just for fear of they don't want to lose him. They want to keep him happy. They want to keep him. That's their first overall pick. That's the guy that they believe could be a franchise player. So that's kind of been my thing. And you look back, the Pistons have always overpaid over the last 10 years. But I understand, like, from your standpoint, like, you don't want to give him a max. He hasn't really done anything yet. I understand that. I really do. Okay, you guys. I know we talked about a lot of Jaden Ivey. We talked about Monty Williams a little bit. Talked about Cade's rookie max extension. If they can coexist together, I appreciate you guys so much. More than you guys know. You guys really make this podcast fun for me. You really do. We're gonna get to the next topic of the show, you guys, and with it being the trading deadline season, okay? A lot of the players on this team have been in trade talks, right? And Alec Burks is one of them, okay? Alec Burks has been playing phenomenally. Like the past couple of weeks, man. He had a 30 ball yesterday against the Milwaukee Bucks. Played his ass off, by the way. The New York Knicks have trade interest in Alec Burks, along with the New Orleans Pelicans as well. Okay. The reason why we're going to talk about the Knicks is because the Knicks right now, I think, want to make a deep playoff run. I think they're set up to at least get out of the first round. They just traded for OG Anunoby. What you have to know about Alec Burks is Tom Thibodeau loves Alec Burks, by the way. He loves him. Read multiple articles over the past couple of months, and they always cite that Tom Thibodeau loves Alec Burks, and he's one of his favorite players he's ever coached at any level. Now, the New York Knicks do have draft capital. They own the Detroit Pistons first-round pick, for you guys that don't know. Okay. Alec Burks is on an expiring $10 million contract. Now, whether you want to trade him at the deadline or you just don't want to bring him back, you can. I think the Pistons are going to get some offers for Burks. Just the way he's been playing, man. Like, Alec Burks has been playing so damn well lately that I think the Pistons could get something decent. I really do. I just don't I don't know what the Pistons are going to do with it, right? Because Bojan Bogdanovic, for example, like there were trade offers for him last year, we learned, but the Pistons weren't willing to, step down from their asking price. I don't know what their asking price for Burks is. The Pelicans obviously interested, the Knicks interested. If I was the Pistons, I would want my first round draft pick back because there's protections on it and it's going to last until like 2026, 2027, where there's going to be, top protections on it. I think this year it's top 18, next year goes to top 13. If you want to make a move down the line and trade your first round draft pick, I think this is the opportunity to try to get it back from the Knicks. You could give them Burks. We could take on the draft pick, get our draft pick back, and maybe you do something like Evan Fournier if you want to get your draft pick back. Or maybe you're looking at the Pelicans, and I'm glad Alan said it. He said I'd get Herb Jones. Herb Jones actually is on the trading block right now. Like, that's something. That's interesting. Good defender. Really athletic. Good player. But I have a feeling the Pistons and the Knicks are going to do some deals, especially when it comes to Alec Burks. I think the Pistons, even though they value Isaiah Stewart, the protections on that draft pick, to me, I think hinder any type of movement they want to make with the trade, right? Like you have protections on that pick, obviously. They're so heavily protected. Like this, like top 18. No way the Pistons are going to have the 18th pick this year. They have the worst record in the league. So the Pistons are going to keep their draft pick. But if you look at the protections, each and every year goes like top 13, top 9, whatever. You want to get it back. Like, let's say you want to go make a trade. Like you can technically trade it, but like there's so many, hoops you have to jump through to actually trade it. I think if I'm the Pistons, I'm trying to see what it's going to take to get my first round draft pick back from the New York Knicks. If you have to trade Alec Burks, I mean, why not? Only player I'd really look at is maybe a Quentin Grimes. Maybe Evan Fournier, because he's on the last year of a deal and you can create more cap space that way. But I'd really like to get the Detroit Pistons first round draft pick back without those stupid protections. But I want to know what you guys think in the comments about that. Would you trade Alec Burks? Are you guys opposed to trading him? Do you want to keep him? Do you want to bring him back? We're going to the comment section and see what you guys are saying about the Pistons possibly trading Alec Burks to either the Knicks that have interest and the New Orleans Pelicans. Absolutely. Yes, I agree. Yeah. I'm glad you agree with me. I know not all the time you guys agree with me, but like, I think at some point, like you have to try to get your first round draft pick back. Like if you want to go make a trade, like it's kind of complicated right now. I was reading an article from Keith Smith, who's a cap space expert, saying like the Pistons can make a trade. They can trade their draft pick, but it's complicated. You have to jump through a lot of hoops, and the Knicks have to agree to it. It's like I think if the Pistons feel that they're maybe a piece or two away and they want to include a future first round draft pick, like why not try to go get it back? Got D-Buck. I say no, keep Burks and Bojan. Okay, yeah. See, D-Buck, I welcome these comments. I really do. I really do. Good vets. I agree with you. But at the same time, it's like last year of a deal. Let's see what you can get for him. I got Maurice. Let's say Markkanen becomes available next year. We can trade multiple for him if we have control of the pick. Yeah, if he's even available. See, Maurice, I don't honestly think he's available. Even though there are reports out there, I think Danny Ainge is just on his bullshit. I think Danny Ainge is just trying to see which teams are desperate enough to trade him multiple picks. And I think the only team that could actually do that is OKC. Because OKC does have multiple draft picks that they could trade Utah. But I don't think the Pistons could even put themselves in that competition. Honestly, because we just don't have the draft picks that Utah probably wants or is asking for. Right? Would be nice to keep, but you got to move him this year. Get that New York pick back. Yeah, I honestly like Rock. I think it just kind of hinders, like, if you want to make a trade, there's a little bit of obstacles with it. I know you could possibly trade it, but like I said, it's really complicated. I tried to understand it, but I'm a dumbass. But like I said, it's really nerdy stuff. D-Buck, from my understanding, after a while, that first will turn into a second round pick if it not use it. Yeah, you are right. You know what? I'm just gonna look it up. Okay. I'm gonna look it up real quick for you guys. Because I want to get the right information for you guys as we're doing this podcast. Let's see. So I gotta go over to Real GM. Do apologize for you guys. Okay, so we're gonna break down this pick. Okay. So this season, it is top 18 protected. Okay. So it's top 18 protected in 2024. So in 2025, it is top 13 protected if it isn't settled. 14 through 30 if New York hasn't settled. Okay, so if it's not settled by next year, the Pistons or another lottery team, say, they get to keep the pick. In 2026, it's top 11 protected. So if the Pistons have a draft pick that is, anywhere below 11, they get to keep it. In 2027, it's top 9 protected. And if it isn't settled by then, D-Buck, you are 100% right. It does get settled. It does. But my argument with it is, if you do want to make future trades, if you're the Pistons and you don't want to worry about having protections until 2027, I mean, you have to at least see what New York would possibly want for it. I don't really think they would probably want a whole lot for it because they're in like a win now mode. Like maybe you give them Alec Burks, maybe they budge if you take on Evan Fournier, and maybe they could throw in a Quentin Grimes in there, because the Knicks didn't trade for OG Anunoby just to make the playoffs and maybe win one round. The Knicks want to go pretty deep, and if you're giving them a veteran like Burks, maybe possibly you get your pick back. We'll do a couple more questions about Burks. Game Nuts. The real question with Burks is, are you going to re-sign him / does he want to re-sign? If the answer is no, send him on his way. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not going to pretend like I do. I would assume, though, a veteran like him in the later part of his career probably wants to win. He probably wants to contribute to a playoff team. So you're seeing some playoff teams that have interest in him. He's been a microwave the past couple of weeks. I see some Pistons fans saying, I want at least the first for Alec Burks, just the way he's been playing. But I think they move him. That's just my feeling. I think they're going to try to move him, see what they can get. Don't trade Burks. 15 to 20 points off the bench. $10 million is a cheap deal. William, you are right. It is a cheap deal, but it's the last year of his deal. Who's to say that he's not going to ask the Pistons for 15, maybe 20? I don't know if you can get Alec Burks to re-sign with the Pistons for another 10 mil. He might want more. You have to remember that too. The move to the Pelicans for Herb Jones would make sense if they're able to do a 3-team deal with the Knicks for the pick, and Jones would be sweet. Yeah, that would be like a dream. It really would. It really would. I'm gonna save your question, Red Baron, for the Q&A because it's a really good question. I do apologize. I'm gonna wait that long to actually answer your question, but I do want to get into the rest of the topics for this show, you guys. I do. We're more trade stuff. So this comes from Hoops Hype, and Hoops Hype had reported that the Dallas Mavericks attempted to trade for Bojan last year. I think we all know that. There's kind of been speculation that they offered to first. We had James Edwards on a couple of weeks ago. He said that wasn't true to his knowledge. But who knows what's true, really? With Pascal Siakam off the market now, I think the Mavericks are still going to try to trade for a Bojan Bogdanovic. I think the Mavericks right now want to make their front court a little bit stronger, and I think Bojan could fix that issue that they're having this season. Not to say that they're having a bad season. They're having a pretty good season. But I think for the Mavericks, they've had interest in Bojan since he was a member of the Utah Jazz, right? And when I was reading this Hoops Hype article, they had hinted that Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, Grant Williams, and draft compensation could be on the table to upgrade that power forward position, right? I know a lot of you guys like Jaden Hardy. I don't know how you guys feel about Grant Williams. He's one of those guys that I think some Pistons fans wanted. Josh Green has been better. His rookie year, he was pretty bad, but I don't know if that was because of Rick Carlisle not playing him a lot, but he's gotten better each and every year. Those are some of the guys that they're willing to move off of if they do make a trade for a power forward. Whether you want to categorize Bojan as a power forward or not, he could play both forward positions, in my opinion. But I think those players move the needle a little bit if you're Detroit. I think Grant Williams would be interesting, but I don't really know if I'm like really in love with that. Josh Green, I think he's a young player, up and coming, but do you really need him? I'm not entirely sure. Um, Dallas to me just seems like a team that's always really active at the deadline. But the Pistons asking prices, I think, two first still this season. I don't know if you're going to get two first for Bojan. I don't. You might get a first and a young player, and I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. I really wouldn't. Um, but I don't know, maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. I don't know. I think Bojan has value, but I don't really know if teams around the NBA are going to bounty up two first round picks for a guy that's 34. Um, and he missed the majority of the season with a calf injury. We didn't see him until December this season. And he recently got hurt, but he's since been back in the lineup. It was the same calf that was bothering him. But if I'm a Pistons fan, I'm not like opposed to trading Bojan. I think for the right price, he's gettable. But for me, I would want at least a first round pick. I'm not saying lottery, but at least a first round pick in the future, near future, I should say, and maybe a young player that helped this team out more. Um, I think there's a lot of teams, not only the Mavericks. I think any contender will probably be calling the Pistons about Bojan, but my gut tells me that the Pistons will not trade Bojan this deadline. Tells me that they're going to be stubborn. They're going to hold on to him because they want to quote unquote compete, whatever the hell that means. But do want to go to the comment section with you guys, see what you're saying about possibly moving on from Bojan and the Dallas Mavericks' interest with Bojan Bogdanovic. Maurice Shaw, I don't want Grant Williams. We can do better. Yeah, I mean, Grant Williams, like, he's not like a bad player by any means. But to your point, yeah, they probably could do better. I don't really know where they're at with Derek Lively. I think that's a guy that they want to keep. And it's the last thing we need is another center, but he's a really nice player, good rim protector. But look at the Mavericks team, they don't really have a whole lot to offer. And that's the problem. Right. But it's not just the Mavericks. I think there's a lot of teams in the NBA. I mentioned earlier, like a lot of contenders. They probably want Bojan Bogdanovic. And who wouldn't want a guy that can score 20 a game, good free throw shooter, hell of a 3-point shooter? I think there's interest from a lot of contenders. I just think the Pistons are being really stubborn with their asking price right now. Maurice also asked, how about Kevin Huerter in a first from the Kings? I wouldn't mind Red Velvet in a first. I wouldn't. Kevin Huerter's a hell of a shooter. Hell of a shooter. And he's younger. And if you get a first from the Kings, I feel like the Kings are a team that, much like the Knicks, they want to make a deep playoff run too. And they had a hell of a season last year. I think they wouldn't be opposed to making moves. We saw that they were willing to, pull the trigger for Pascal Siakam, but Siakam wasn't really feeling it, I guess. I think the Kings will be pretty active at the trade deadline to try to get better, but I think Bojan would be a really good fit on their team too. I don't know. I really don't. I wouldn't mind that trade though. I really wouldn't. D-Buck. I would trade Bojan for another scoring option, but if you trade him without that, Cade's game will get impacted by more double teams. Yeah, I think you do want to address the scoring issue if you do want to move on from Bojan. I don't really know what he can get you in the open market. I still think a first isn't unreasonable. I think teams would be willing to give you a future first. But like need a future first within the next couple of years, like a 2025 or 2026. Like I don't want no like 2029, don't want a first round pick, 5 years out. I think the Pistons would want a future first in the near future, I should say. And I don't think that's too much of an asking price for a guy that can, either start for you or come off your bench. Allen, I wouldn't take Williams or Green. Oh, yeah, fair, fair. I mean, if you don't like what the Mavericks have to offer, I think there's a lot of other teams in the NBA that would love a Bojan Bogdanovic. I really do. Um, I'd take Lively. Yeah, me too. I was really high on Lively coming out of the draft. I think that he's a good player. Um, I really do. But we are going to move on to the next topic, you guys. I know it was a little bit of a shorter topic. Um, in the last topic of the podcast, you guys. Okay. Um, this came out the other day, and there are three teams in the NBA right now that have trade interest in Miles Bridges. It's the Sacramento Kings, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Pistons. They have shown trade interest in him. Now, he's a guy that I want to be careful when I'm talking about Miles Bridges. I've told you guys before, I'm not going to speak uh, on Miles Bridges' name when it's not basketball related. And I know some people were disgusted with the off the court stuff, and I can understand why. With his, I don't even know what she was, like a girlfriend or a wife, ex girlfriend, whatever. But as a basketball player, I think the Pistons have been interested for a minute. I just wonder how he would do with the Pistons in terms of coming back home and distractions. That's my thing, because I think the basketball player is a good player. I think he would be a fit on this team. Now, I know some people I've seen on Twitter say, he's a terrible defender. He wouldn't be good here. I disagree with that. I think offensively, you have a lob threat for Cade. He can hit a 3-point shot. He can work in the post a little bit. I think he would work here in Detroit. It's just you really would have to keep an eye on him. You really would. And I want to bring up another Piston that we did sign that was quote unquote a distraction, and that's Josh Jackson, right? Josh Jackson was here in Detroit for a little bit. And a lot of people were like, oh, why are the Pistons signing Josh Jackson? Like, the guy's a mess. Like, what the hell are they doing? I think if they really kept an eye on Miles Bridges, they could find a way for it to work. I just think from a basketball standpoint, it would make sense for them to try to go after him. But it's, like I said, there's going to be a lot of backlash and negativity towards it because of the off the court issues, and I completely understand that. But like I said, I wanted to keep it strictly basketball, because when you get in those conversations with people, and I understand it, it's a very touchy subject. But I try to keep it just basketball related when I talk about Miles Bridges. I was a fan of his at Michigan State. I thought he was a hell of a player under Tom Izzo. I've always been a fan of his from afar. Watching him and LaMelo Ball, throwing him lobs up the court. I think Jaden Ivey could do that with him. I think Cade Cunningham could do that with him. Even Marcus Sasser to an extent. I think the fit, it could work. It's just you worry about the off the court stuff. You worry about distractions with him coming home. Would he have more distractions coming back home? I don't know. I don't know him personally. But I think as a basketball standpoint, he would make sense. And you also have to remember that he was on the Pistons wish list from a couple of weeks ago that Shams Charania reported. It was OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Miles Bridges, and Tobias Harris. So there is definitely a lot of interest from the Pistons standpoint. Did the Pistons make a trade for him in a couple of weeks? They could, or they could wait to see what happens as free agency and maybe assign him to a cheaper deal. Maybe you sign him to a deal that, like, hey, it's a risk for us signing you. We're going to give you just a cheap deal. I don't know. Obviously, the Kings are interested, and the Mavericks. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mavericks did trade for him. I mean, Mark Cuban signed Dennis Rodman when Rodman was a party animal. Like, wouldn't make sense. Or it would make sense if they would go after him. But I do want to go to the comment section with you guys. I know you guys are leaving comments as I'm talking right now about the Pistons possibly trading for Miles Bridges or going after him in free agency with him. Miles off the court is risky though. Yeah, 100%. 100% agree with you. He is. He's extremely risky. I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast about this does pertain to Josh Jackson. Because Josh Jackson and Miles Bridges are extremely close friends. And I actually learned this. I'm trying to think who told me this, but they're pretty good friends with Josh Jackson. Might have been his trainer. I don't remember. But when the Pistons signed Josh Jackson, right? Josh Jackson had to live across the street from Troy Weaver because Troy wanted to keep an eye on him while he was here. Now, does Troy do that with Miles Bridges? I don't know. But I mean, if you want to keep an eye on him, making sure he's staying out of trouble, maybe do the same thing. I don't know. Bridges is what we need here without question. I don't care what he did off the court. Yeah, there are some people like Stink. Doesn't care what he did off the court. I'm not going to take a side. I'm just going to talk strictly basketball because when I brought him up a couple of months ago, I should say, my mentions on Twitter were going off. I had like activists telling me I'm a piece of shit and all that stuff like that, but I get it. To me, I think basketball sense, he makes a lot of sense. Just the type of player he is. What would that leave a star if we got Bridges? I still believe in a star as special talent. So rotation wise, it's a great question. Now, would Bridges probably start here? Depends. It really depends. It depends on what they do at the deadline, because I think the Pistons will probably make another trade or two at the deadline to really clean this roster up. But I would assume he would start. What does that mean for Asar possibly coming off the bench again? And Asar, ever since they traded Livers, has really turned it on offensively and defensively. He's getting that opportunity. He doesn't have someone above him. But I think the Pistons want to upgrade the forward position, Red Baron. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see Asar coming off the bench going into next season, because you see reports about Tobias Harris. You see reports about them wanting to get forwards that are veterans and that can spread the floor. Asar could come off the bench, and whoever they bring in could be a mentor for him. I know some fans just want Asar to get as much touches as he can. They want Asar to start. I understand that, but I think from a competitive standpoint, the Pistons want to get a little bit older at the forward position and get more vets in here to help this team win. I think what that would mean with Asar is he's probably coming off the bench again if you do go get Bridges. I know what he did was wrong. He's going to play in the league. Yeah, like I think he'll still play in the league too, Maurice. What he did was wrong. I'm not, taking any sides between, Miles Bridges and his wife, girlfriend, whatever she was, but I can understand why people were upset. I could. I know. I mean, like Canada didn't even let him in. Like the Raptors wouldn't let Miles Bridges into the country. Pacers looking good with that Siakam trade. Yeah, I know that was a wish list of Pistons fans for sure. They really wanted Pascal Siakam. There was a lot of noise with Pistons possibly going out and getting him. But it looks like he is not going to be a Detroit Piston. He is going to be a Indiana Pacer for quite a long time. And Indiana gave up 3 first-round picks, you guys. Like, that's nuts. 3 first for a guy in an expiring contract. Like, wow. That trade, I wasn't surprised that Indiana traded for him. I was surprised of how many draft picks they actually gave up for him. I wasn't expecting 3 first for a guy like that. I was like, okay. I mean, like if you really think he's worth 3 first, I mean, who am I to say? Uh Bull said the same thing about Rodman. I'm just saying we have one of the best locker rooms in the NBA, and I'm all for it if Troy thinks it's a good idea. Yeah, I mean that's a good point, Game Nuts. Now, I think the reason why the Pistons have such a good locker room is because they have a lot of high character guys. And when you say high character guys, you're talking about good people. They always say we want to get the person right. Um, and that would kind of contradict what Troy Weaver has been about. But like he signed Josh Jackson, who wasn't a model citizen to say. If you feel like you can control him, if you feel like you're not worried about the off the court stuff, if you feel like your locker room can stay intact, then go for it. Go for it. I mean, he's a talented player. You can't diminish what he does on the basketball court. You can't diminish the type of basketball player he is. He's a good basketball player. He really is. Sarr is an actual small forward. Yeah, he is. He is a small forward, and I do know that. I mean, I don't know why this comment is here, but I don't know if someone in the comment section was saying that he was a shooting guard or power forward. I don't know, but yeah, Sarr Thompson is a small forward. That's what it says on his bio on NBA.com. Miles Bridges scoring will help this team as a consistent number 2 go-to scoring option. Yeah, like I said, I don't question his basketball ability. I don't. It's just the off the court stuff you have to worry about, right? I think he's a good player. But we're gonna go to Q&A, guys. There were a couple of questions that I did save because they're really good questions. And if you guys do have questions you want to ask me, or topics, whatever, this is an open forum, open discussion for you guys. I like doing it for you guys. I want to keep you guys involved at all times during this podcast. That's the main goal of this podcast, is to keep you guys involved, because at the end of the day, this podcast is for you guys and what you guys want to see. And I just like talking about the Pistons. I really do. Wish I could do this 7 days a week because I could. This was a comment earlier from Carlton that was watching on Facebook. So he had asked, how do you feel about the young talent? My first time watching your pod. Well, appreciate you watching the podcast, Carlton. Really do. How do I feel about the young talent on this team? I think they're talented, but when you look at the young talent that has been drafted in the lottery, the Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Asar, right? They're good players, but I think a lot of people look at the players on this team. I should say the young players on this team, and you have guys like Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson that aren't really known to be perimeter shooters. And people question the fit on this team. They question roster wise, does the construction make sense? Now, I think it's too early to really say whether or not Duren is going to be a plus shooter, but I could understand why certain people, they don't have stock in Duren as a shooter. I do. I think he could develop a mid-range jumper easily. Seen him try a couple mid-range jumpers this year, and his jump shot looks pretty good. And I'm kind of liking the way that they're letting him, play, point Duren, for example, kind of taking the ball up the floor. I don't hate it. I think it's good for his development. You just have to ask yourself, do you think he'll be a plus offensive player? I think he will. I think there's just too much talent, too much raw talent for him not to untap. There's a lot of potential there. As for Asar, I think Asar is a good enough basketball player where if he's just cutting and getting to the basket and, just playing that transition game that I think that's his bread and butter, I think he can be a good player. And you can kind of hide Asar Thompson on offense if you want. Like if he never becomes that, knockdown shooter that you want him to become, he never even, develops a league average 3-point shot. Asar Thompson is a cutter. Asar Thompson, in more pick and roll situations, that's how you're going to have to use him. I talked about it a couple months ago. It's just like if he becomes an Andre Roberson, um, then those are the conversations you have to have. I like this young core, I do, but I won't be surprised if one of these guys Troy Weaver has drafted over the last couple of seasons gets traded. I really wouldn't. And I know I only mentioned four guys. Obviously, you still have Isaiah Stewart, who's 22. I didn't even mention Marcus Sasser, who's one of their better guards. I think there's a lot of young talent on this team. I like it. I'm not entirely sure fit wise if this team will be kept together long term, but I do appreciate the question, Carlton. Really do. Jeremy Banks. Why did they never start Bagley at power forward? Him and Dern could have been interesting to see. So this is a interesting question. I've seen this question in different variations with why don't they start Jalen Dern and James Wiseman together, right? Because the Pistons are really interested in like two big lineups, which hey, more power to them. I think the reason why they never started Bagley with Duran is because of defense. Bagley is not known to be a lockdown defender by any means. Bagley's best strength is back to the basket and just getting those post touches. And the problem with that is that would force Duran to play power forward. Not to say he's not capable, but I'd much rather have Duran get those touches in the paint than a Marvin Bagley. That's why I thought Bagley was just so valuable off the bench for the Pistons. But defensively, he's not locked down, but he did improve a lot this season with the Pistons on the defensive end of the floor. I noticed a lot of development for him personally. But I think the biggest reason why you never saw those two is they kind of contradict each other in certain situations, and the paint was just way too clogged for both of them to be out there because Bagley can hit a 3-point shot once in a while, but he's not like a knockdown 3-point shooter. I think that's another part of his game that he needs to develop if, possibly he gets thrown into a too big lineup in Washington. But I think the biggest reason was, lack of spacing, and you didn't want to have the paint clogged with all the guards. Red Baron, I am going to get to your question now because this was a really good question when we were talking about Alec Burks. So you had asked who has more trade value right now, Bojan Bogdanovic or Alec Burks? So this is interesting. I think trade value, I would say Bojan. I think Bojan can get you more. But I think Burks, if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he might get you more. You're having 30-point games like that. You're hitting tying games in Utah, going to overtime like that. Like if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he might actually get you more. But I think as of right now, I still stand that Bojan Bogdanovic will get you more in the open trade market this trading deadline than Alec Burks would, because Bojan is on a very friendly deal if you're looking for a guy that can, hit a perimeter shot, put the ball on the floor a little bit, and it's just a plus offensive player. We know defensively he's a traffic cone out there at times, but I think Bojan just has more value in the league because a lot of contenders want a guy like Bojan off their bench. But I wouldn't be surprised if Alex Burks' value goes up a little bit because he's just playing out of his mind lately. It's insane how good he's been. We talked about it a little bit, not too much. We talked about the Pelicans possibly being interested in Alec Burks, and maybe you could do a swap for like a Burks, Herb Jones, but he'd definitely be on my radar from the Pistons. I think it'd be a really good fit. Asking me draft questions, Maurice. Man, depending on the draft, they could get Alex Sarr. We would have the best young core. Sarr could stretch the floor power forward. It looks like he's going to be the first overall pick. Now, for you guys that haven't got into the NBA draft, Alex Sarr is just a monster. 7-footer, can block shots, could put the ball on the floor a little bit, has a post-up game. If the Pistons win the lottery, they're probably selecting Alex Sarr and figuring it out later. But a Sarr-Duren combo would be absolutely nasty, Maurice. You're right. You're right. But we gonna win the lottery or get fifth again? I don't know. I haven't even really got into draft stuff yet, but he's a prospect that I've watched a couple of times and watched a game of his live when I want to say they were playing the G League Ignite. Could be wrong, but it was a game against another top prospect. I think it was like Ron Holland or something like that. And he looked incredible. But I think he's going to be the first overall pick this year. He's just way too talented not to go first. Do you know any of the Pistons players? Like on a personal level, no. I tend to just leave players alone. The only Piston player that I've really gotten to know on a personal level was Andre Drummond, and he was really cool. But I tend to just leave players alone. Do some of them follow me? Sure. Former players follow me on Instagram, like Grant Hill and Jerry Stackhouse, Lindsey Hunter. I tend to just leave the players alone, but I don't know any of them on a personal level. But thanks for the question, Jack. Ooh, good question. Do you think the Pistons are going to re-sign Wiseman or wait until after the draft to see who they get? I think they're just going to let him hit free agency. I don't think they're going to re-sign him. I don't think they can. He's not the center that they need right now. I think if you're Detroit, what you need for Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, you got to go out and get a veteran center. Nothing against James Wiseman. I'm sure he'll get a contract elsewhere. But if you're Detroit, you need to go get a veteran center that can be a mentor to your young bigs. James Wiseman is a baby himself. Whether he gets traded over the next couple of weeks, how wouldn't that be ironic? Just traded for him last year. Or they just let him go into free agency and let him sign elsewhere. I think that's probably going to be the route or the option. They had a chance to extend him this past summer, and they didn't do it. He's on a $13 million rookie contract extension, or not rookie contract extension. That's his rookie deal, I should say. It's $13 million because he was a second overall pick. But no, I don't see the Pistons re-signing James Wiseman or keeping him around for next season. I think what they're going to do is look to the trade market in the next couple of weeks, see if there's veteran centers available or sign one this summer, because I think that's what's really missing on this roster right now is veteran leadership at the center position. But appreciate the question, D-Buck. I just don't think they would re-sign him. Yeah, it's just I just don't see it. Not to say that Wiseman's a bad player. I just think Wiseman needs opportunity elsewhere where he can grow. The Pistons just seem like, even right now as a 4-win basketball team, they want to turn a corner and they want to get better. And we just traded for 2 vets and Gallinari and Muscala. They probably want to bring more vets in, especially at that center position, because I think that's one of your more important positions, especially with Jalen Duren being your center. Jalen Duren needs a JaVale McGee, right? He needs one of those veteran centers that has had some playoff success, maybe won a championship, with the team. I think a guy like that, to me, would make a whole lot of sense, even though I know JaVale's older, but you guys get what I'm saying. The Pistons need veterans at the center position and at the point guard position. That's why I think they tried to well, they did trade. They did trade for Monte Morris, and I think that they had really big plans for him this season, but it just hasn't worked out. He could possibly come back next week too, you guys. You can see Monte Morris, I think, as early as the 24th, I read. So you can get Cade Cunningham and Monte Morris coming back to the lineup next week. Wiseman for PJ Tucker. I don't even. If someone can help me in the comment section. I don't remember where PJ Tucker plays. Is it still Philly or am I wrong? I'm not entirely sure. I just haven't been keeping up with PJ Tucker. I'm re-signing Wiseman. Sorry. No, like I get it, Stank. Like if you buy into the hype with Wiseman, if you think he can develop, if you think he can get better, by all means, go for it. I just think this organization is going to look for a vet. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think he's going to be on this team next year. And I could be wrong. I'll admit when I'm wrong, but I think they want to get a little bit older at that position, especially the backup position. Then the Clippers, okay. Yeah, like I just haven't been keeping up with PJ Tucker. The only thing I see on PJ Tucker, like on my timeline, is they go crazy with his shoes. Even though his shoe collection is pretty legendary. I guess he was wearing some like off-white Kobe 5s. Everyone was like losing their shit. Like, how the fuck did he get these? Like his shoe collection is unmatched. It's crazy. Good question, Jack. How many wins do you think we'll get in February with a healthy roster? Shit, Johnny. I don't know, man. They're getting better. I will say 3. I think they can get 3 wins if everyone's healthy. Everyone's firing in all cylinders. I don't know, man. This season's has been a blur. I think they got 4 right now. I just want them to at least have enough wins where they don't tie the Bobcats, even though it was a shortened season. I need them to win more than 7 basketball games. I really do. I can't have them tie the Bobcats. I really can't. Okay, yeah, he's with the Clippers. Gotcha. Yeah, and it's been like I'm such a diehard fan. I still watch, but it's just like it's so sad to watch this team like get worse each and every year. It really is. We'll do a couple more questions, and I'm gonna hang it up, you guys. I had a hell of a weekend. Maybe I'll tell you guys about it before I end it. If Monte Morris comes back, Killian gets benched. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. Monty loves Killian Hayes. I don't know if Monte is going to change that. Who knows if he's even like rusty or if he's going to be a minute restriction, but I just want to see what he looks like. Really do. What about Mo Bamba instead of Wiseman? He's kind of in the same category in a sense where he's still young and learning, Jack, but I hate to sound like broken record. I think they just want to go, more veteran savvy at that backup spot. It's just you have so many young guys, and it's really hard to win in the NBA with a bunch of 20-year-olds. I mean, OKC does it, but they're kind of the exception because they have SGA. But I mean, it's really hard to win in the NBA. It really is. Dennis, I'm not trading Jaden Ivey. Cade is always hurt. I have yet to see him play a whole season. I would keep Duren as Hart Thompson, Cade Ivey, and everyone else trade. I mean, yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier, Dennis. I know some people they don't believe in the fit with Cade and Ivey, and hey, like more power to them. But I think it's just too early to really judge that because we don't really know if it's going to work. But to your point, yeah, Cade hasn't played a full basketball season yet. you have the right to be skeptical until he plays a full season and you see what he's capable of. Yeah, there's going to be criticism. There's going to be skepticism with a lot of you guys, and I completely understand that. Like, he's got to play at least 70 to 75 games a year for us to feel comfortable, right? To give him possibly that max rookie contract extension. But I do agree with you in terms of keeping that core. Great question, D-Buck. Actually was in a group chat talking about this. Should Ivy be the primary ball handler of Cade? It seems he gets more players involved and not just standing around waiting for a shot. I think the biggest thing, and I want to tread carefully when I say this because I never know who's watching. When Cade has the ball in his hands, I've noticed this. Maybe you guys can comment if you've noticed it too. When Cade Cunningham has the ball in his hands, it seems like everyone is just standing waiting for him to make a play or make a move. And it's stagnant. Like, there's no, player movement. There's no cuts. I've noticed that, a lot with Cade. With Ivy plays at a much faster pace than Cade. And I think we all understand that. That's part of Ivy's game is just, transition, speed, acceleration. You could arguably move Cade Cunningham to small forward if you wanted to. Saw a lot of people talking about this, like, why can't Cade Cunningham be our Jason Tatum? Why can't Cade Cunningham just be that scoring threat that we need? We don't need Cade to play make. He could just be our guy to get us 20 points a game, and Ivy could run the show. I think there's a reality where that could work. I think there's also a reality where Cade and Ivy split the time. Whoever's hot that night, take the ball. I think there's a lot of solutions, but there's also a lot of problems with that too. That's why I'm so high on both of them, because they're so versatile, man. If you just want to have put Cade in that like Jason Tatum role, you can. He's such a versatile player. Like, Cade can play 1 through 3. He's 6'6". He could be that guy where you need a bucket, give it to Cade. If you have Ivy run the show. I don't know. That's why it's so unique, and I kind of get upset when I see people saying like they can't coexist together, because we don't know. We don't know yet if they can coexist together. I think you have to experiment with lineups and see what works, because the beautiful thing about Jaden Ivey, D-Buck, and Cade Cunningham is they're not one-dimensional in a sense where Jaden Ivey can only play point guard. And Jaden Ivey can play shooting guard too, and point guard. Cade Cunningham can play point guard through small forward. I think you have to experiment with lineups. You have to experiment with what works to try to make them successful and surround them with perimeter shooting, veteran players, and guys that can defend a little bit. But it's a really great question. I know it's probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but it wouldn't really hurt to see if Cade can play some small forward. Give him the ball, let him just focus on scoring versus facilitating and stuff like that. But that's kind of been my takeaway with it. It's just like, why not just try it? Like, what do you have to lose? Like, really? To me, I think this is just another development season. I did want to go to the comments, obviously, with that topic, just to see what you guys are saying. Let's see. I agree. Cade can play small forward, starting point guard, which is why he's on the bench. Yeah. I was thinking about this since Cade plays well off the ball, but then again, playmaking is a big part of Cade's game. Yeah, it is. But I think the issue you have is both Cade and Ivy need the ball in their hands to be effective. Now, Cade could sacrifice and just score the basketball. Like if he wants to do that, he can do that. That's what makes him such a special and a unique player. I think for me, I'd much rather see what Cade looks like at small forward. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We found out. But until you try it, we just don't know like what it could look like. They haven't tried him at small forward yet. They should. Yeah. Like, what's it have to hurt? Honestly, I think if you try to play him at small forward, maybe it works out. Maybe he does like just shooting, 15 to 18 shots a night as a small forward on this basketball team. Maybe you have the ball in Jaden Ivey's hands. And then, like I said, you have an open spot for the two guard. Who's going to be your two guard? Do you put Marcus Sasser there? Do you trade for a guy? Do you get someone in free agency? Like, there's so much they could do with this starting lineup, and I just don't think they've done it yet because of Monty's stubbornness, really. Ivy can run the show, but Money Williams has a problem with playing young players. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, Dennis. Money Williams, you guys are hilarious. Hold on. Why don't they play Ivy at point, Burks at shooting guard, and Cade at small forward? You know what? Like this is my point. You guys are very intelligent basketball fans, and you have common sense. That makes too much sense. I don't even like. They probably have to have another organizational meeting, Maurice, for that to even like be a thing. Like, it makes too much sense. Like it really does, man. Like you guys. That's why I love doing this podcast. Like you guys are like me. You have common sense. Like I don't understand it, man. Like it took Monty 40 games to put the ball in his damn hands. I don't get it. I really don't. But I do want to thank you guys for watching the show. We're almost on for 2 hours. I don't think I've done a 2-hour pod in a minute. I really haven't. But I do appreciate you guys watching. We'll be back next week again. I'm gonna try to get a guest. It's so hard to get a guest right now because a lot of the guys that I want to bring on are Lions fans. And they're like, oh, dude, the Lions are on. I can't. The Lions are on. I can't. I'm going to try to get someone on maybe this week. I do have a couple days off. Maybe we'll do a show on Tuesday. I'll try to get someone on. Talk more Pistons, just kind of like thoughts on the season and stuff like that. But do appreciate you guys watching, this podcast for over an hour and a half on a Sunday night. See you guys next week. Hope you guys had a good weekend. And later.